Hello, this is Erik Leaver with the Institute for Policy Studies and the Foreign Policy in Focus Project. I'm here today with Stacy Bannerman, a woman who's married to a member of the Army National Guard who served in Iraq for a year. And Stacy is a member of Military Families Speak Out, an organization of more than 3,000 military families who are opposed to the war in Iraq. Perhaps the only anti-war expert to testify in a hearing during the Republican-led Congress over the last 4 years. Stacy appeared last year in a House Appropriations hearing. It was a subcommittee on military quality of life and Veterans Affairs. And during that time, she talked about many of the issues that are pertinent and in the news today. Thanks for being here with us, Stacy.
Happy to.
Some people are comparing the recently exposed tenement-like conditions at Walter Reed Hospital, where many U.S. soldiers who have been wounded in combat are treated, as a Katrina moment, a time where the country sees the horrible conditions that others are living in and demands a change. How do you view this particular moment?
Well, I view this moment as really being just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the realities of what our Iraq War veterans and military families are facing and have been facing for many, many years. Unfortunately, the Katrina moment that happened with this country, after a very brief period of time, everybody went back to business as usual, just as this nation did after 9/11. I have no reason to expect that it's going to be any different in this situation regarding improving veterans' care.
Walter Reed has been sort of a high-profile story, but perhaps a bigger scandal that remains under the cover is the lack of attention to mental health issues. In particular, the care for Guard and reservists seems incredibly lacking. Could you explain a little bit how your husband Lauren and other Guardsmen are monitored and treated when they return home from service?
Well, the short answer to that is that they're not. And I want to say the Walter Reed story broke, and one of the things that makes it so compelling is because these are visible physical injuries. People can see them. Approximately 56,000 of our soldiers have been wounded in Iraq, both combat and non-combat injuries. And the current estimates are that more than 250,000 of our troops are going to be diagnosed with full-blown PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as a result of serving in Iraq. And certainly the Guard and Reserve, our citizen soldiers, we know for a fact, based on studies that have been done of reservists who've served in much smaller numbers in previous wars, those studies tell us that Guard and Reservists have got significantly higher rates and susceptibility to post-combat mental health problems than regular active duty. And yet, regular active duty troops, when they come home for the first 90 days, are mandated to participate in weekly mental health or counseling kinds of sessions and activities and check-ins and those kinds of things. The Guard and Reserve are effectively hands-off. That's been the policy of the Department of Defense. Many of our citizen soldiers are not even given a comprehensive mental health evaluation until they've been home for almost 7 months. This was the case with my husband's company. He didn't get informed of the results of that test for almost 1 year later. Now, a lot can happen in a year and a half. And keep in mind that the Department of Defense has guaranteed that citizen soldiers can access veterans' care for the first 2 years when they're terminated from active duty service. So their clock for care begins to tick approximately 30 days after they come home.
Just as we're not taking care of the troops when they come home, neither are we taking care of them apparently as they're going into the field. The Washington Post reported on March 1st that nearly 90% of the Army National Guard units in the United States are marked as not ready. What impact does this have on the soldiers, and what do you think should be done about it?
Well, this also is an issue that I have been speaking out about for a number of years. As I said, military families have been speaking out about problems with lack of care, lack of training, lack of equipment, both on the ground in Iraq and when they come home. unfortunately, until the media spotlight is shown on it, nobody listens. And that's a tragedy and a travesty. And the implications for Homeland Security are profound. I know certainly for the 81st Brigade and my husband's unit in the 81st Brigade, for them to be home for a year and not have their equipment has made it virtually impossible for them to do their trainings. Trying to function at such a low level of readiness means that they are our first response in America. And when they get the call, that means they can't respond. It's devastating for the morale when they don't have the equipment and the supplies that are necessary for them to complete their drills and perform the duties if they need to be called up. You know, when it was announced finally by Lieutenant General Blum in February of 2007 that approximately 88% of the Guard units were not fully equipped or considered at readiness, when I shared that with my husband, he said, "You don't have to tell me. I know that. We've known that for years." And so once again, our citizen soldiers are being treated like second-class citizens, and that's what the experience has been for them throughout. Unfortunately, the cost of that is really coming home and destroying marriages and families and wearing away really at the fabric of American life and our communities.
Well, over the next couple of weeks, this issue is, seems to be hot in Congress, as it will likely be throughout the rest of the year. What are you doing on the behalf of advocating for the soldiers?
Well, the main thing that I'm doing is to call for Congress to support the troops and vote no on the supplemental. A nation that does not take care of its veterans has got no business whatsoever making new ones.
Thank you, Stacy Bannerman. This is Erik Leaver with the Institute for Policy Studies.
Thank you, Erik.